This is the kind of job that makes people want to sell their BMW. Timing chain and guide replacement. Now the old twin turbo N54 doesn't really suffer from timing chain issues, and the process of replacing this one is quite similar to a lot of other BMW 6-cylinder engines. Now once you see all that's involved, you'll understand why shops charge what they charge to replace timing chains and guides. Now because this engine is out of the car and removed, we'd be a fool to not replace the timing chains and guides while we have all this good access. The chain and guides on this engine look great, but we're still gonna do it. Now to do this job properly, we have to set the engine to top dead center, we have to lock the crankshaft, we have to lock both camshafts, and make sure everything is perfect before we retorque things. Now the hardest part of this job is not removing the timing chain. It is making sure that everything is perfect and lined up before you torque it. If you have things off just by a little bit, the car won't run right, or you can cause catastrophic engine damage. So let's get started at the beginning. The first step is getting access to the valve train in the top end. That means removing the valve cover. Now we have a great view of the intake and exhaust camshafts. And up front we have our cam adjustment bolts, the top part of our timing chain guide assembly or cassette, and our main timing chain. Now I already have the bottom end exposed and the oil pan removed from when I replaced the rod bearings last video. And if you're going to be doing the timing chain and guides from the crank to the oil pump, you'll need the bottom end exposed as well. Now I'm going to continue stripping down this engine. And right now I'm pulling out the oil Vanos solenoids. And these are for your variable valve timing. I don't know if they're gonna be in the way of the timing chain or not, but we're also gonna be resealing them this video. And they are interchangeable. I'm also gonna be resealing the exhaust and intake camshaft sensors, so let's pull those too. The part numbers are the same, so they are interchangeable. Pop these O-rings out. Let's also remove the crank hub or the harmonic balancer. Let's get this starter removed as well, because the pin to lock the crankshaft is hidden behind this starter. That ain't coming out. Oh, you know what? It's not behind the starter. I was mistaken. The pin to lock the crank is not behind the starter, although we are going to be removing this crankshaft sensor, so we have good access to that now. The pin to lock the crankshaft is down here. This also looks like it's an O'Reilly or AutoZone remanufactured in Mexico starter, so we're not going to be using this on the new build. Now, although this crankshaft sensor looks a lot like those camshaft sensors, they are not the same and they are not interchangeable, so do not get them mixed up. Well, before we get too far along, let's talk about tools, parts, and repair instructions. Now I'm following instructions on ISTA for replacing timing chain N54. Preliminary tasks: remove the fan shroud, valve cover, all spark plugs, chain tensioner, crankshaft seal, belt tensioner, harmonic balancer, and intake and exhaust adjusters. Here I have instructions for installing and replacing intake and exhaust camshaft adjusters, which are those two cam gears. So I'm going to be following these instructions to the T. Got some nice photos here. And once I finish removing the intake and exhaust camshaft adjusters, we will be jumping into the replacing the timing chain instructions. For specialty tools, I will be using this CTA BMW timing tool kit for N51, N52, N53, N54, and N55. And for parts, we have a table full of genuine BMW and OE timing chain and guide components. And I got all of these parts and that specialty timing tool from today's sponsor, FCP Euro. Now, if you watch my channel, you know that FCP Euro is the only European parts provider that I use. And I can tell you all the talking points as to why you should support FCP Euro: the lifetime replacement guarantee, the technical support hotline, the stellar customer support, the huge catalog of OE, OEM, and aftermarket options, the 2 warehouses in Connecticut and Arizona so you get super fast shipping times anywhere in the US. Here's the real reason, okay? Their goal is the same as my goal. I want to teach BMW owners how to fix their own car to save you time and money. And that's their goal too. They just happen to sell the parts to get the job done. FCP Euro was the first brand to truly support me on this channel. Not only do they want to support me, they also support my dream and my vision. And they've also donated thousands and thousands of dollars worth of parts to my BMW E46 giveaway series so they can give back to the community alongside me. And I think that just speaks volumes. Now, if you've never checked them out before, go to fcpeuro.com, throw in your vehicle details, and just browse around. Their catalog is truly impressive. Whether you're resealing an oil filter housing or an oil pan or doing suspension, they have these kits so you don't have to search for part numbers. Just one click of a button, you have every single item that you need. It makes life so easy, and they are the best part supplier in all the land. A big thank you to SCP Euro for supporting me and sponsoring this video. You guys are the absolute best. Let's jump into these timing chain components and let me show you what I got. For parts, we got this little holder tool that goes with the oil pump timing chain guide. We have all the genuine hardware that we could need. We have our timing chain hydraulic tensioner. We have our grip discs that go between the sprockets. We have another timing chain holder, more hardware, OE, camshaft and crankshaft sensor O-rings, Vanos solenoid reseal kits, front crank seal, more OE torque to yield hardware, more timing chain hardware, camshaft adjuster bolts, oil pump timing chain, main timing chain, genuine BMW sprocket, another genuine sprocket, our main timing chain cassette, our second timing chain cassette, a rear main, and the vacuum pump seal we press onto the front of the engine. We'll go over the details on those parts during the actual installation, so let's just keep plugging away. ISTA wants us to pull out this front crank seal, so let's do that next. First, I'm gonna spray it off with some brake cleaner and clean it up. Now there's a couple different ways to pop out seals. You can use a seal puller, you can also use a screwdriver, you can drive a screw into it and then use that to lever it out. I'm gonna try a screwdriver next because we all got a screwdriver at our house. I think if we go in this way, nope, screwdriver's not going very easy. Let's try my seal puller tool. Once you get it bit in there like that, you lever off the outside of the case here. Those little Mars are okay, but you really don't want to scrape the inside diameter of the block here. Normally I get these out so easy. And just so you guys are aware, I've never done an N54 timing chain. I've done M62 TUs and some other Mini Cooper engines like N14s and N18s, but never a N54. I don't think I've ever even done an N55 or an N52 or an N51. So this is all new. So take my process with a grain of salt. Sometimes you can push one side in and it pops the other side out. But that ain't going. I think now that that seal is torn, we should be able to get it with the screwdriver. The big thing is you don't want to go past the seal and then gouge the metal surface. You want to make sure whatever tool you're putting in there is biting on that inside edge of the seal. If you put a big gouge on there, your seal can leak when you install the new one. For the sake of science, let's try another method. We're going to take this screw, little Phillips head screw, find the center of that seal, thread that in. You want to be careful with this method that you don't run your screw into the block or into the crank hub. Dang, none of my techs are working. None of my techniques. Normally these are pretty easy. Now I can reach up and I can feel where the back of my seal puller is biting on. The only problem is my fulcrum on the seal puller is right here and I don't want it to gouge that block surface. So hopefully I can put some plastic in there. So much leverage on that plastic, it literally cut it. I'm not proud of this one, guys, but we're gonna get it out. I thought this would be an easy part. I normally pop seals out with ease. I've never had a seal fight me so hard with such good access. Nice. Oh my goodness. Get out of there, dude. Jeez. Look at all my attempts on the backside there. So the main thing is you're not going all the way past and gouging the block surface. So let me spray this out and inspect it. Make sure I didn't do any damage. So we have a couple little marks where I levered off the outside of the block, but that's okay because nothing seals against there. But if we look inside here, that dark mark right there is where the injection comes out of the bed plate. But if we look down, we have no Mars, which means our sealing surface is really nice and clean. So our crankshaft seal should not leak. Well, that wasn't pretty. I'm actually quite embarrassed of that crankshaft seal removal process, but you guys get to see the real world example of what it looks like to get a crankshaft seal out. That one fought me harder than any crankshaft seal I've ever done in my life, but I'm not gonna make it look like it was easier than it wasn't. That thing fought me hard, so you guys get the real authentic experience. I'll always be honest and straight up with you. Okay, it's time to try to put this thing to TDC. So let's take this bracket off, give you guys a better view. And on these BMW N engines, there's this little plug back here. Actually, oh my goodness, you know what? we won't be able to lock it to TDC because I have the flywheel off. Does that mean we'll have to take this thing off the engine stand? Oh no, we're gonna have to take this thing off the engine stand so I can lock it for timing. I can't fit the flex plate on with this bracket. I think we can get away with half ton. I was really hoping we could do this job on the engine stand, but there's not enough room between the engine stand and the block for me to mount the flex plate to lock the crankshaft. So now let's open up our load leveler. Got the seat out of the giveaway car. Place it with the Recaro bucket seat. I got it. It was in the glove box. Okay, now we need a mounting location somewhere in the rear. I think if we can go off this top bell housing bolt, that'll be perfect. And that is how we have to do the timing chains now. I mean, we could try to see if I could fit the flex plate on with this engine stand bracket, but this engine stand bracket is the reason why we can't do it on the stand. Okay, so here's my flex plate, and one of these is larger than all the rest, and that's the one that goes in on this dowel. It won't fit on that one. It won't fit there. So I rotate it to there. It goes this way because there's bolt marks on this side. I'm gonna take this off in the future to do the rear main, and I'll Loctite these. I'm just gonna throw a quick torque on these just to hold it in place. Just as an experiment, will it fit with the flex plate? If we could extend it with washers, or if we took that washer off, it's possible. And that would make life so much easier to time this thing, because I'm going to have to torque the crank bolt while this thing is swinging in the air, and it's just gonna suck. It really is just gonna suck. Let me see if I can modify this to make it work. I got something I wanna try. And here I thought this job was gonna go relatively quick. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I was hesitant and nervous to start this job. This is one of the biggest, most complex jobs I've done on my channel, and it requires a lot of precision to make sure everything is timed correctly. I just wanna make sure I was a good representation of it. I tried to be as organized as possible, but I didn't foresee not having the flex plate on the engine. I didn't see that coming. So I got an idea. Either I space this bracket off of the block by putting some washers on it like that, but then I reduce the amount of threads that are catching, or this is the bolt that goes from bracket to engine stand bracket. If I shave this bolt down, to relatively half of its height, that will also work. I think I'm gonna shave them. I just need to make this boy a little skinnier. This is gonna take me a little bit, but to be able to have this flex plate on while the engine is on the engine stand is going to be huge, or else this entire job, I have to do it on the hoist like this, with this thing swinging around, and it's gonna suck. I figured it out, I did it. First thing I did is I took the washer off behind the bolt so we could suck it into the bracket a little further. Then I went to the hardware store, got some M12 by 1.75 by 90, and I also grabbed some M14 washers to space this out a little bit. So now we got enough room for flex plate to slide on past the bolts. That means we don't have to do the timing chain and guides on the hoist. We can put this sucker back on the stand. We're back on the stand with the flex plate on. All right, let's get some actual work done and find TDC on cylinder number 1. I take a long screwdriver. You can take whatever, as long as it doesn't fall down and get stuck. And I use that as a reference to know where my piston is on number 1. We're also gonna go down here to this little slot. Now that we have the flex plate on, as we rotate it around to TDC number 1, we're gonna have a little hole and we have a little pin that drops in there. So let's go get our pin. I also need to figure out how this timing kit works. But here is an example of a crankshaft pin right here. And then we have these blocks that go on the camshafts here. Then we have some other marks, N51, N52, N53, N54, N55. I don't know how those work yet. So we take the pin, we slide it in there, see it hits flex plate. So now we need to rotate it around till TDC and get that sucker to drop in there. And this is Sage, the best dog on YouTube. Paw, good girl. Other paw, good girl. Down, yes, good girl. I don't know which pin to use. This timing kit didn't come with instructions. 22mm ½ inch on the crank. I can't really see anything on the flex plate, so I'm just gonna put light pressure And I'm also up here, I'm watching my screwdriver rise. Oh, and I felt my pin hit something, but it can also block the flex plate and bind it. So we're just on the outside, so I'm gonna back the locking pin out. And I'm gonna go just a touch. Oh, yep, it just locked. Boom, crankshaft is locked up. So I waited till I got just to the top while applying a little forward pressure on the pin. Once the crank didn't want to spin, because there's like a little welded on piece on the outside of that hole, I backed the pin out, I gave it just a little bump, and the pin slid in and went flush. Our pin is in there. Oh, and you can see it on the backside. There's our pin. And the pin isn't just hanging on this thin hole here for the torque converter. There's actually a welded on bracket where that pin sits in. So it's more reinforced than it looks. I can also see up top that the intake and the exhaust valves are fully closed and the springs aren't really compressed. So that's a good sign. We'll really be able to know this thing is timed because of these two camshafts here. That's what we're gonna look at next. If you look right here, you can see a QR code, and also the camshaft has straight sides over here on the intake, and QR code and straight sides over here on the exhaust. I think this is already pre-assembled for me, ready to go. So, oh, I think we need to adjust it for the height. We're close though. Only this one needs to be adjusted, I think. So this side of the camshaft block has 3 threaded holes. This one only has 2. So I know that this side is going to be adjustable. It's a little tight. I think I have it in the correct way though. You don't need to take these cam covers off. And then this piece is going to be for installing the reluctor wheels. And so that goes in like that. So let's talk about this before I just go slapping it on. This is basically like the front timing block. We have these little pins here, right? One there, one there. We have these little holes on these reluctor wheels on the camshaft. So these little pins slide in there. One there, the other one there, and boom. That thing is all nice and lined up. It comes with some hardware, some little M6 bolts, and then you thread those in, and then our camshafts are all locked in. Okay, that's one part of it done. You need to figure out how these cam blocks slide in. I think they're just so new that, oh, see, that one slides in bitchin'. You guys didn't have a good angle. Anyways, these blocks fell nice and into place. So I'll pull this one out for you. Okay, there we go. This side towards the rear. Boom, looking good. Now we drop our Allens back in. And this also tells us that this engine is in time, and it was not out of time while it was still running, because the cams and the little cam gears and the wheels are lined up with the camshafts right now. And we have the pin, and we have the crank pinned at #1 TDC. So when this engine was pulled out of the car, it was all nice and timed up. Okay, so now we have our cam locks on this bar. That's all dialed in. And we grab some hardware out of our kit, like that. Drop those down, and we thread those into the cylinder head. Timing belts are easy because you don't need a specific timing kit like this. Timing chains are different, and you need special tools to lock everything down like this. Boom. Okay, we got our crank pinned. We have our camshafts locked. We have our front cam gears locked, our little reluctor wheels locked. We are in good shape, folks. And these reluctor wheels are for the camshaft position sensors, cam sensors. Okay, according to ISTA, we don't need the front piece, but I'm gonna keep it on while we bust these nuts loose. Set up the timing blocks, release central bolt of exhaust and intake, and then release chain tensioner, which is this big bolt right here. Okay, let's get to work. I'm sorry it took so long to get going, guys. Let's actually do some real work now, huh? There was a lot of setup involved with this one. There's no margin for error. I'm gonna double check they're not reverse thread. I referenced my new bolts and they are standard. You know how difficult this would have been on the engine hoist? Now these are not interchangeable. There's an intake and exhaust, and I will show you the markings on them. Oh, leave these in there for just a second. Let's bust this chain tensioner. Big old 27. And I'm using cups. Shout out Dave's Auto Center. Been watching a lot of Dave's Auto Center. They use red Solo beer cups for all their organization, and I like that. Okay, exhaust bolt, intake bolt. Let's take this camshaft gear block off. Okay, let's take a close look at this. As you can see, this is not keyed. It's fully cylindrical on the back side. It's So it's only held down with tension from the bolt. A lot of varnish on this thing. Trying to see if there's an intake and an exhaust side. Okay, these are the same, but we're gonna keep them separated just in case. The really clean one's gonna be exhaust and the dirty one's gonna be intake. This is where organization starts to be very important. Detach exhaust camshaft adjuster from exhaust, detach intake. Do not mix up adjusters. So it's talking about the Vanos. Intake and exhaust camshafts are different. Ein and aus, in and exit, but I like ein and aus. Do we have enough slack to get these things out? Not really. Aus! Now the crazy thing about these two is these aren't keyed as well. These are strictly just held in tight with those bolts. There's no keys. All right, gang, camshaft adjusters are out. Now we have our timing chain exposed, tensioners out. We're good to keep going. Let's keep following instructions. The rest of these for the camshaft adjusters is gonna be positioning, adjusting the valve timing, fitting the chain tensioner, making sure that everything is routed correctly. And then this is gonna go into installation. Assemble engine. Now we switch over to these ones. So remove fan shroud, valve cover, all spark plugs, chain tensioner, crankshaft seal, belt tensioner, harmonic balancer, intake and exhaust adjusters. Okay, now we go into securing the engine. We got our pin in, we're still locked, and our camshafts are still locked, and we're just gonna leave that in time. So do not remove the pin. Make sure it's locked. Block the flywheel using the transmission bell housing, but our pin should be enough. Okay, time to release central bolt. Remove the crank bolt. Let's whack this thing out with the impact gun, 22 mil. I'm afraid that pin isn't strong enough. I don't have the cylinder crank hold down tool. I'm really scared that I'm gonna break the flex plate. Yeah, because right there, it's already a little sloppy. I think I already wallered it out a little bit. So we're gonna need to make a tool to hold this. Actually, you know what I used to do? Is chain wrench this sucker. I don't need a hold down tool if I got my chain wrench. I'm gonna show you guys how my chain wrench works. Chain wrench, baby! So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold the harmonic balancer with the chain wrench. But to make sure we don't gouge it, we're gonna wrap a piece of belt around it. I'm gonna trim this. We don't always have all the specialty tools that BMW wants us to have, you know? Different crank hold down tool for every different engine. The chain wrench is universal. I used to hold a lot of crank hubs down with it. The only thing you need is just some spare belt like this. Just get it wrapped on, and this is just gonna protect our crank hub. This is just so the belt stays put. Our chain wrench needs to go in the opposite direction, so let's test it. Like I said, guys, I ain't no master tech. I ain't even an ASE certified tech. I'm just a dude in his garage trying to fix some BMWs. Come on, bite. That's no problem. We'll just put you on the inside. Okay, then you lock your chain in. And now, when I bite that way, it's gonna twist the crank to the left. So we're good, and we're lined up. So we're gonna go left with the bolt. We're gonna go right with the chain wrench. It's even easier to mix up when you're underneath the car on your back. Get your lefties and righties mixed up. Okay, get this wrench as tight as we can, like that. And now when I pull it, it's gonna go right. All right, you guys ready? I could try to impact it with the chain wrench on it and hold opposite pressure. Let's try that real quick. As long as I keep the pressure off the flex plate. Impact gun, you feel weak right now, bro. Get some! That's why we hit the gym. Chain wrench is stuck. Break it loose, remove central bolt with hub towards front. Remove it, it says. Here's the back side of the crank hub. That's what seals around your crank seal. And there we have the sprocket for the bottom of the main timing chain. Then behind that, we have the other chain that goes down to the oil pump. Next, we open the plug over here in the top right. 8 mil. Next, we're gonna open this plug. Next, we release the screw in the top right, release the screw in the bottom left. Top right is a T40. That's what the bolt looks like. Bottom left is a 45, T45. And this one is slightly larger and longer. Next step, remove timing chain module with timing chain and sprocket upwards in the direction of the arrow. All right, everything should come out. No, it never told me to release these screws, and those are still holding it on. I gotta pull those. Maybe that was part of the cam sprocket instructions. This is like a little E8. All right, this thing should want to come out now. Oh yeah, there we go, folks. Looking at these guides, they actually look pretty good. There's a little bit of grooving there on the tensioner side, but like all in all, it still had a good amount of life on them. These N54s really don't have timing chain issues. None that I've ever seen in the shop setting. Can't really see the bottom side with the chain still in, but I'm not gonna take it apart right now. I'm gonna keep this all complete so I can use it as a reference for putting the new one together. I also just love how these things come out in one piece, one big cassette. It just makes it feel satisfying. If we look in here, you can see this little disc right here. It clips onto the crankshaft. That's one of our friction discs. And that is something that we need to replace. It is super easy to forget. So then on top of that, we also have our sprocket for our oil pump. Now, the instructions I have on ISTA don't cover that. So I'm gonna have to get those printed out this evening so we can follow that procedure too, because we need to replace that, this cassette here, remove the sprocket at the oil pump, and we need to go into here, pull this cover off, get to the back side of the vacuum pump, because the chain drives off that too. Thanks to our longtime viewer and Discord moderator, Mr. John Lamson, we're gonna be busting out the ultrasonic parts cleaner tonight. Got the little camshaft wheels in there. We also got the plugs, and we'll also throw in our crank bolt, all of our harmonic balancer hardware, and our crank hub. Thanks, John. I'm gonna head inside, get Sage fed, order up some dinner, take care of Sunday's upload, and then we'll get back at it tomorrow morning with the oil pump chain sprocket. Next day, we are back. Before we move forward with any repairs today, guys, I need to apologize. Yesterday, I showed you the improper technique on disassembling this timing chain. I wailed on this crankshaft bolt, breaking it loose with just that pin through the upper oil pan into the flex plate. And by doing so, I damaged that flex plate. There are small little welded tabs that hold that pin in place, and they are not meant to hold the engine and hold the crankshaft in place for breaking that bolt loose. When I wailed on it with my impact gun, I bent those tabs out and I wallowed out that slot that pin drops into. And by doing so, I jeopardized my ability to time the bottom end of the engine up with the top end. I was able to use my chain wrench on that harmonic balancer and hold that crank still while I was able to break that bolt loose. But now there's gonna be some slop between my bottom end timing up with my top end, because you can use the piston as a TDC indicator, right? And put a screwdriver in there and wait for it to get to the top, but it's still not as precise as that pin dropping into that perfectly machined area. So I want to apologize. I want to put my hand up and I want to take full ownership of my mistake, because I don't want to mislead you guys and show you guys the wrong way to do things. I don't always have the correct specialty tools. It costs a lot of money to have all these different BMW specialty tools. And you know, I just haven't timed a timing chain engine in a long time. And I simply just forgot about either holding the flex plate by the tooth and putting a locking tool in there, or putting a chain wrench on the harmonic balancer, or installing a BMW crankshaft hold down tool, which I have ordered up. So we'll be able to put it back together by the end of this video, but I will have to retime the engine again once I swap my old flex plate from the old engine onto this new engine. I'll be swapping the valve covers too, so I'll have access to the camshafts, and I'll have to pin the crank and then see if the camshafts drop in. If they don't, I'll break the camshaft bolts loose. I'll adjust them just slightly and get the camshafts lined up with the crankshaft, and we'll have good timing to drop that new engine in. But I was thinking about this last night and I was like, man, I did damage to that flex plate. And if I didn't have a spare flex plate, I would be in trouble. And do not torque on this crankshaft bolt without having a lockdown tool, either on the crankshaft hub or on the teeth of the flex plate that mounts up inside the bell housing, or just some type of hold down tool. You cannot wail on this crankshaft with just that pin holding on into the flex plate like I did. But luckily we have a spare flex plate, so we'll be able to fix it. I'm not perfect. I'm not a master tech. I'm not the best technician. I make mistakes all the time, but I like to take pride in putting my hand up and admitting when I did something wrong and I'm never gonna hide anything from you guys or try to cover up the truth. I'll always be honest and straight up with you and own my mistakes and document them on video for you guys. With that being said, now we can get started on the bottom end of this timing chain module, and I got some repair instructions. Here's an overview for the repair instructions for installing, replacing chain module for oil pump and vacuum pump. One of the preliminary tasks that we need to do is we need to remove the vacuum pump sealing cap. All the other stuff we have taken care of, and then we can jump into all of the instructions for doing this lower timing chain assembly. Also, let's get these pulleys out of the way. I should have done this yesterday when I was pulling off the harmonic balancer. Let's pull these out. Oh, they need replacing anyways. They're a little noisy, so we'll buy a tensioner and pulley kit and install it on this engine. They also have these little caps on the back. I like to just reverse direction on my ratchet and thread those on so they stay put. Now this is a sealing cap that covers up the access port for timing chain sprocket to vacuum pump. And then the vacuum pump goes to the high pressure fuel pump. In order to remove this vacuum pump, we have to pop out this cap. I've done this once on an engine swap I did on an N55. It is a real pain to install without the specialty tool, but we're gonna give it our best. Now, while researching this job, I saw someone drill a hole and then pull the sealing cap out with a pick tool. Although I don't like the idea of drilling through the metal and putting all that down onto the oil pump. So we're gonna try to put a self-tapper in right here and take it out that way. First, let's spray this off with a little brake cleaner. Now there's some scratch marks here. It looks like the person I bought that engine from possibly attempted to pop that seal out so he could pull the vacuum pump and sell it separately. Someone tried. Looks like they tried. I finally found a self-tapper. What I'm gonna do first too is we can use our new seal and just sort of examine where that metal plate runs, and it looks like it's fully continuous. So I think we can go just about anywhere. I'm gonna go right here so I have a place to lever off and just go right near the edge. We'll be able to inspect for any shavings once we get this out. Now there's a specialty tool for removal and installation, but I don't have them. So let's try to make do with what I got. Nice, that worked really well. And there you go. Screw on the back side. We didn't touch the sealing surface at all. And now we have access to our vacuum pump and the sprocket and the timing chain. Here's a close look at what that timing chain sprocket looks like, bolted up to the vacuum pump. And then in here, I believe, is our tensioner. All right, we've completed all the necessary preliminary tasks. The last one was remove the vacuum pump sealing cap. Now what we're gonna do is turn the sprocket at the central bolt and basically turn this into position for this specialty tool. This specialty tool here is to hold that sprocket down while we break that nut loose. Again, this is another specialty tool that we don't have, but I did see someone online just used a punch or a screwdriver and held that sprocket in place enough to break this loose. So that's the way we're gonna do it. And then from there, we secure the timing chain tensioner, and then we can feed this sprocket out. So next, let's find something to wedge in here to the block so we can hold that securely, and then we'll break this loose. First, let's find our size. Looks like a T55, and I'm gonna get this handy just so we can have it to rotate. And what I'm gonna do is we just rotate this a little bit. Oh, there's some junk on that. A little bit of brake cleaner junk got on the oil pump. I would have liked to pressure wash this engine before disassembly, but my pressure washer's broken. Okay, so we're gonna be rotating it counterclockwise. I'm just looking for like the strongest part of the casting, because if we were to break anything internally here, this is where the vacuum pump joins against the block, and we'd be in a really tough spot. Knipex sent me a bunch of their really nice chisels and punches. So I'm gonna see if we can fit one of these in there, because I feel like that'll be some really strong metal. So basically what I'm gonna do is jam one of these punches through the sprocket into a little cavity back here where the vacuum pump bolts up to the block, and just hold that sprocket in place just like that so we can break that bolt loose. I don't think there should be too much force on this thing. I think it'll go pretty easy, and I think going by hand might be better than using an impact gun. She went a little bit, put a little bit of a micro dent on that little ear. Problem is we could damage this sprocket too. What's another way I can accomplish this? I could pin the oil pump And then we're just putting the stress on this sprocket and the chain, but this is a more secure spot to lock it. Let's try doing both. Let's pin the oil pump and try to support it. In the video, he used a screwdriver. I think if I have the lock tool in and I get a bite here and I lever up with the screwdriver at the same time as breaking it loose, I think that'll work. Got it. That wasn't too tight. Should I be using all the specialty tools for this? Yeah, probably, but are you guys gonna buy the $2,000 worth of specialty tools to do the timing chain job on top of all the price of parts that you'll need for it as well? Probably not, so at least this is like a realistic way of how to get the job done without investing all that money into specialty tools. Like here, we're not using a specialty tool lock pin. We're just taking an Allen wrench. Next step, push this chain tensioner and the chain to the left side of our open threaded portion on the vacuum pump now. Push that open and slide a pin inside that little circle. We're locking out the chain and the tensioner. And go to inside here, push that chain out of the way, and drop that in, like that. It's not perfect, but we got slack now. And next step, feed out the sprocket at the hexagon head of the vacuum pump. Installation note, a lock pin is pre-installed if the triangular drive is replaced, and we have that lock pin for the installation. So now, take off our sprocket. Actually, you know what? I don't think we have to take the sprocket off. I think it's gonna stay pre-assembled on this timing chain assembly. So I think we're okay. I think all we're doing is taking it off the vacuum pump, which we have. Our next step is unfastening the 2 screws for the timing chain assembly right here on the oil pump. And I removed these in order to take the oil pump out to do the rod bearings last video. Go watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. So those are already removed. Next, the sprocket must be blocked in order to release the central bolt for the oil pump. I already released that bolt, so it should be able to come out nice and easy. Release oil pump central bolt. Secure the crankshaft and camshaft. Release the crank bolt, which we already did. Remove the hub towards the front. It's already removed. And then we open this screw here on the bed plate, and we get access to our last timing chain bolt, and then this entire cassette should come out. So let's pull this oil pump bolt, and next we'll pull out this plug. Let's try to spray out this plug. And now we got a sneaky little screw back there. It's like a little E10. See it? I don't think we can fit a socket through that hole. Oh yeah, 1/4 inch E10 works just fine. Slip that through there. And I think now, once we pull this sprocket off the oil pump, this thing should come out. Boom. Look at that, folks. We got it out. Let's go. And here's what everything looks like with all the sprockets and timing chain assembly stripped off. We got our oil pump with our snout for our oil pump nut and sprocket. We have the front end of our crankshaft. Doesn't look like there's a friction washer on there, so both of them should be on the sprocket. Then here we have the back side of our vacuum pump. 1, 2, 3 sealing ports that were pulled open. All right, let's look at our oil pump timing chain guide module. So this little hole right there is what we pinned for our tensioner, right there. And this looks like it's our tensioner. It's just some spring steel that keeps this piece in place. Our guides look great. We have our tensioner, we have our sprocket for our vacuum pump and high pressure fuel pump. Chain runs down this guide to our oil pump sprocket. Then it runs up here, this guide, to our crankshaft sprocket. On this, we have one of those friction plates. I put it back on so I didn't lose it. And this allows the crank hub to bite onto this surface. If this wasn't here, that crank hub would slip on this sprocket and we would lose friction. So these friction discs are incredibly necessary. I'm gonna keep this whole module together so I can use it for reference as we reassemble the new one. Let's check the instructions. So last step, we removed the screw and then we removed the triangular drive in the direction of arrow, which was out the bottom. Note installation direction of sprocket. Collar on sprocket points to timing chain drive. Incorrect assembly will result in engine damage. So here we can see that collar. And they're talking about this collar here, I believe, and this needs to point towards timing chain. So the timing chain goes on top. The M54 requires special friction plates between the friction surfaces. So if those aren't there, the crankshaft hub will spin and it'd be no good. So we got one clipped on the front there. And you can also see the tabs for another friction disc clipped on the back. There's our second friction disc clipped on the back, and that makes contact to the actual crankshaft itself. Feed-in oil pump chain module. Secure oil pump chain module with screws. All our torque specs. Check both the friction plates. Push on friction plate without retainers. Again, telling us, and then put everything back together. Okay, let's assemble our oil pump module. So we have the old one for reference. So here's our new chain module. Here's our chain. Here is our little piece that secures our crank sprocket. Now this sprocket here is for the bottom of the other sprocket. So the one that we need is this one with the big old snout on it. That's the one we need. And there's no, look at this surface. This surface is already rough. It's almost abrasive. It feels like sandpaper. And this side too. So it was designed to be made with those friction plates. This is our assembling hook for installation. Our grip discs or little friction plates. We have a quantity of 2. And really, I think that's it. Because we're gonna be swapping the sprockets over. So there's one friction disc. And these are all genuine BMW. There's your proof. All genuine BMW. Shout out FCP Euro. Every single part was ordered from them. I also have a crankshaft bolt on the way, as well as new flex plate bolts. After doing some research, that crankshaft bolt needs to be renewed. So we're gonna be replacing that in the future as well, before we get this thing buttoned up. Okay, well, this is pretty much ready for reassembly. But now we need to disassemble the old one. With that popped out, we can pull our crankshaft sprocket. You can see we have friction washer on the top, friction washer on the bottom. Apologies for the chicken noise, can't control them. There's our old grip disc off the back side. Now we can take this. Now with that crankshaft sprocket removed, makes things really easy. Just wanted to make sure it looks nice and flat. Which it does. I did put a little stress on it, but it's okay. Okay, now we can pull our sprocket for the oil pump. Old timing chain gets set aside. Again, BMW numbers facing out. And now, let's test fit our new chain. Trying real hard to get you guys a good camera angle and not get in the way. So what I think this piece does here is it clips into here. This basically opens up our tensioner for installation. Like that. Okay, fresh gloves. Let's fit our grip discs. The grip disc doesn't really like to go on that well. My thought is that I think these crank sprockets are different. I didn't think about this when ordering parts, but the engine that I'm doing the timing chain on is a 2009, and the engine that is coming out of the car is a 2008, and I ordered all the parts for a 2008. So now I need to put in the vehicle details for a 2009 and see if the crank sprockets have changed. Because look at this new one and look at the old one. It doesn't have these little marks. If you look at this side too, the chamfered edge on the inside of the new one is slightly larger than the chamfered edge on the outside of the old one. And also, yeah, it's a good thing I caught that. These grooves here on the inside of this are completely different. So I'm gonna have to order parts for a 2009. Uh-oh, I think I'm at a stalemate. Oil pump sprocket update. It is obvious that these are two different designs. This is the old sprocket out of the 09 new engine. This is the one I ordered using real OEM for part numbers and from FCP Euro. After realizing that the grip discs would not fit onto this new style, I am glad I caught it. I went and looked up the part number on FCP Euro's website. This is why I love FCP Euro. They have these reviews and people are so helpful. This is the newer grip sprocket for the N54 engines. Make sure you do your research on this part, as you also need the new crank hub. This won't fit over the older style one, and also the other sprocket too. These newer sprockets have increased grip surface area. It's now spot welded to the hub to address spinning issues at high horsepower. These are originally designed for the S55, etc., but they released them also for the N54. Please look up everything you need when doing this and be meticulous about part numbers. I am so glad that I caught those grip discs and didn't install this, because I'm using the old hub, and I think it is gonna need different grip disc part numbers to go with it too. So my game plan is just to use the old oil pump crankshaft sprocket. It still looks to be in decent shape. We'll clean up the mating surfaces. I don't see that it's slipped or anything, and we'll put some new grip discs on this thing. That way we can keep moving forward. I still need to wait for a crankshaft bolt, but at least we can keep making progress and get this module installed. Well, I took everything apart because I thought we were going to be storing things for a while until I figured out this parts debacle. I did have the dismantler who sold me this used N54 engine send me the VIN number. It's for a February of 2009 engine, and the engine I ordered parts for was a February 2008. I double checked part numbers on Real OEM. They show the same schematics and the same part numbers, so we should be okay. I don't have the correct parts to make this new one work. Well, before I do the final installation, I will, there we go. That goes on how it should. I'm gonna do some research on that new crank hub, see if I can find some more info for us. I doubt a lot of people run into this issue because, like I said before, N54s just really don't have timing chain issues like other engines. They're quite stout. In addition to both of those grip discs, there's also another grip disc on the hub that I missed yesterday. But while I was looking and ordering the crank bolt, I saw this washer on Real OEM and I was like, oh, we should order this anyways. I sure am glad that I did, because I just realized it was hidden on the crank hub when I threw it in the ultrasonic parts cleaner. So we'll also need to replace this washer too before we can reinstall our crank hub. All right, I think we can attempt reinstallation again. We should be in good shape. We're not going to be able to finish it today, but we can get this module installed. There is a lot of little components for this job, that's for sure. A lot more than I expected. I thought I covered my bases and ordered everything I needed from FCP Euro, and I was looking at part schematics and I still missed it. I think I should talk to the folks over at FCP Euro and we should put together a timing chain kit for this engine, with all the grip disc components that are needed for that new updated S55 oil pump sprocket. Oh, holy cow. Okay, everything looks good. Vacuum pump sprocket with numbers facing out, oil pump sprocket, numbers facing out, grip discs installed on both sides of the old oil pump crankshaft sprocket. Grip disc on top, grip disc on bottom. Our sprocket retainer is in and fully clipped. And we also have our timing chain tensioner tool installed. That is all of the new parts for the oil pump timing chain module. As far as this old oil pump timing chain module, these guides are perfect. Like, yes, it's brittle and old, but I can barely feel a groove with my finger. This tensioner looks perfect. I feel no groove. I can see signs of where the chain rubbed, but I can't even catch anything with my fingernail. This thing could have gone another 200K, at least 100,000 miles. This thing looks good. So I've wiped out all of my surfaces along the hub here for the vacuum pump, the crankshaft, the oil pump. Now I'm going to take some brake cleaner and spray out the threaded portions for the crankshaft, the vacuum pump, oil pump, where the timing chain bolts up to the oil pump, and in here where that little Torx bolt goes to mount the timing chain module. So I couldn't find answers anywhere, but after talking to ChatGPT, this new sprocket has the grip discs integrated into the surface. These little spots are spot welds. But in order to use this new grip disc, we have to order a new crank hub because this crank hub doesn't fit inside this sprocket. So now I need to make a decision. Do I reuse the old stack with the grip discs, the old crank hub, and the old style crank bolt? Or do I switch out the crank hub, use this sprocket, and find the corresponding crank bolt that works with both of them? I need to do some more research. Okay, here's everything I've learned over the last hour about this sprocket. All BMW N54s use this style sprocket with the friction discs, as well as early model N55s, 2011 to 2013. They've since superseded it to this 535 sprocket with integrated grip discs into the sprocket. Now this new sprocket does not fit on the old crank hub ending in 107. If you do buy this sprocket, you have to buy a new crank hub ending in 701 to go with it. You can delete this and update it, but I'm going to keep it original and just use these new grip discs. The N54 never had any issues with these grip discs here at the oil pump crankshaft sprocket. So I'm going to keep all the original geometry. But if you were insisting on replacing this sprocket, you have to update the crank hub. I haven't been able to see this old style sprocket for sale anywhere. So we're reusing the old sprocket. We're going to reuse the old crank hub. I'm waiting on a new crank bolt, and I'm waiting on a new grip washer that goes on the back side of this crank hub. I have solved the mystery of the 535 sprocket. All right, I got my bolt, which is going to mount up right through here once we get this reinstalled into the engine. So let's go get this thing reinstalled. I've been wasting so much time chasing around part numbers and trying to figure out this mystery. I barely made any progress. Now I'm not gonna get this job finished up for a few days because I still have to wait for that new crank bolt and washer and crank hold down tool, but I would like to start getting this timing chain roughly put back together again. That'd be nice. Before I slide all this up, I just wanna make sure, oh, I can see the retainers through the sprocket, so we're in good shape. Okay, that thing's in there snug. We need to put new hardware down here at the bottom. We'll just leave that snug until we get these two bottoms done. Before I snug any of these up, I'm gonna use these bottom bolts to really get the whole module lined up. And I sprayed out all these holes with brake cleaner. We're gonna get a nice good torque, and we'll follow the correct torque sequence for all of them, and then I'll paint mark all the bolts. Okay, those are bitching. And we're gonna have to rotate this a little bit until we get this to drop on. There we go, that's good. Rotate this, the vacuum pump till we get that oil pump sprocket. We got numbers showing, Our retainers are in place. I can see the retainer clips on the back side of the sprocket. I can see my friction plate on the front side of the sprocket. Oil pump sprocket is flush. Vacuum pump sprocket is flush. Our tensioner tool is in place. We have our bolt. And I think now what we'll do is I'll look up the torque specs for these little M6s and we'll get these snugged up, and then we'll throw our hardware back in for oil pump and vacuum pump. Okay, I got torque specs pulled up. I'm gonna show you guys just in case you need them. 3AZ, chain module to crankcase and oil pump, 4 Newton meters, 45 degrees. There's also sprocket to oil pump to bed plate, intake pipe to bed plate. A lot of you guys have asked for an ISTA tutorial, and dude, I had a guy who knows computers torrented onto my computer. And so I wish I could give you guys like a walkthrough on how to do it. You need to find a computer whiz that can torrent it on and then get it configured. Okay, 4, 4, 4, and then I can't angle degree 1/4 inch. So we're going, this is 90. We're gonna go to here, 45, 45, 45. It ain't perfect, but it's torqued, and it's pretty dang close to 45, guys. Okay, let's spray out our oil pump bolt. Oil pump bolt is sprayed off, nice and clean. Threads look great. I'm gonna hit this with some red Loctite. Not taking any chances on this oil pump. Okay, now we're gonna rotate this over until we find that lock right there. Okay, 20 Newton meters. Okay, and now we do 45 degrees of rotation. Okay, for the bolt for sprocket to vacuum pump, it says washed, clean, and oiled. I wanted to Loctite this because it's on a rotating assembly, but ISTA says oiled, and if it's oiled, it's going to be the correct specification for torquing. If it were to be dry, the torquing force is going to be different. So we're going to lightly oil it. It says to oil it. All right, that's 66. I think I can pull the special tool now. Let's keep that in there because when that's removed, it shifts this crankshaft sprocket over, and it's gonna fight us on the installation of the crank hub. So we're gonna leave that in until the crank hub is good to go, which means we need to wait until I get my crank hub bolt. So other things we can do is clean out this little port. I got the little timing cover port in the ultrasonic parts cleaner thanks to Mr. John Lamson. I'm gonna get cleaned up, make some dinner, wait for parts, and we'll be back out here tomorrow to start working on the rest of the timing chain assembly, everything but the crank hub. See you then. Next day, back to work. I'm about to install this lower plug for the oil pump timing chain module. ISTA said to replace this sealing ring on here, but I couldn't slide it off. I tried to take a pair of pliers and grip it and twist the plug out of it, but then I just ended up marring the sealing ring. So I cut it off and I went into my aluminum sealing washer set and I found a washer that's a good enough fit. So we're gonna get this fit in. And if this leaks in the future, it's no big deal. It's relatively easy to access. Another thing too is ISTA doesn't show torque specs for this thing. not in the oil pump timing chain module repair instructions. So I'm just gonna throw this thing in good and tight. And I'd like that washer to fit a little bit better. Just a little offset. I didn't need to replace this washer. It had no signs of wear on it whatsoever. I'm not going to replace the other ones because I don't really have a sealing washer that fits as perfectly as I want it to. But like I said, this thing will be fine. If it leaks in the future, I'll just order a new plug. I'm just getting that sealing washer nice and centered visually since it has a little bit of inside diameter slop, because the old plug, you can't even take it off of the plug. It's on there so tight. All right, that looks great. Snug it down. Next step, we're gonna start assembling this new upper timing chain module. These stickers, I hate it when they put stickers on plastic. I'm gonna show you how to get them off. Get yourself a nice little heat gun. In fact, buy a scorch marker heat gun. That's my brother's company. You can find them all over the place. All you're gonna do is just heat up this sticker a little bit. I've also found that these heat guns work fantastic for getting upper radiator hoses off of plastic radiators without breaking the radiator necks. Heating up the hose works really, really well. You could even just stand it up and use it as a little platform. This little piece right here, this thing's gonna come off super easy. Then you don't have to use brake cleaner and scrape with your nail. Boom, no more sticker residue. Support the family, support Scorch Marker. So looking at the orientation of our old timing chain guide, it looks like this timing chain is gonna need to go into this timing chain module first. Okay, then we have this piece with these two little loops. As you can see here, this just presses in with these little tabs. So let's get our orientation correct. Make sure everything looks good. Just lift up a little bit. Looking good. Matchy matchy. Now we got our new crankshaft sprocket. And as you can see on this one, the snout on the back is a lot longer, so it can't go in both ways. So make sure this new sprocket stays nice and clean. It is going to be mating to a friction material, so we do want to spray her off. Make sure that friction material mating surface to the oil pump crankshaft sprocket and also to the grip washer on the back of the crank hub is nice and clean and free of any oils. From there, open this up, drop her in, and again, that long part is facing towards the back. Boom, there we go. I think it sits, I'm not sure how it orients in there, but the hub will get all that aligned up for us to the crank. And if I'm not mistaken, this thing is locked and dialed and ready to go. Yeah, I think we're ready to rip. So let's look at instructions here. We're back to timing chain and guides instruction. This is removal, and then here, note installation direction of sprocket. The collar on the back on sprocket points to the crankshaft, which we have correct. Pull timing chain upwards until the sprocket engages the chain guide, which is this little piece, and that's what we have here. The sprocket clips in almost to this little plastic piece. Always hold timing chain under tension, so you kind of want to hold it from the top and dangle it. Timing chain may jam on chain module. Okay, it's telling us about the friction plates, which we have covered in detail. Here it gives us an example of being able to see those retainers on that oil pump crankshaft sprocket like we looked at. Make sure the friction plates are in the correct installation. Push the washer onto the back of the crank hub. There's another grip disc back there. And now we get to the installation. Insert chain module from above and secure with bolt 1. Make sure gear wheels are in correct installation position and then insert the hub. Looks like we're going to be securing it with bolt 1, which is in the top left of the crank hub area. So just for installation purposes, I'm going to take my grip disc and slide it back down. We will be removing this crank hub and replacing this grip disc when the new one arrives with my new crank bolt. But for now, we'll just use this for mock-up. And then we need to figure out which of these two bolts is that bottom left one. I think it's this big one. And as you can see, there's already some thread sealant on there. Yeah, it's definitely that one. So we'll get our Torx for it. We'll drop this in, throw this in, and then we will start getting this thing mocked up. Okay, we got our T45 with our timing chain guide bolt there ready to go. You ready? I don't really like how that bolt was going in. So what I'm gonna do is grab my crank hub with my grip disc. Let's pull back up on here. Let's get this all lined up with the crank hub. Oh, please tell me you fit. There we go. Let's also just grab a couple threads with my old crank bolt. Again, this is coming out. At least for now, this will get things centered while we torque. I'm thinking maybe I grabbed the wrong, no, I didn't grab the wrong bolt. What I think is I was threading it in, I hit that thread sealant portion and it was just a little stiff. Yeah, that's all that happened. I am gonna spray that out real quick with some brake cleaner because there's a little oil back there in the threaded portion I forgot to clean. That looks good. Because the other bolt is gonna go up there and that bolt is a lot smaller. So timing chain module is roughly in. We've now snugged up that T45. We still need to torque it. And now we're gonna move over to this one and secure the timing chain to the cylinder head through that hole. A 1/4 inch T40 fits through the hole nicely as opposed to the 3/8. It doesn't go through this plug. Okay, our last two pieces of hardware go to this upper guide, and that's these little E8 head bolts. Brand new bolts. I believe we should be able to get the Vanos solenoids on with slack that we have in place. Should be good. 8.5 Newton meters for the timing chain guide module to cylinder head. 14 Newton meters for this M7 bolt for guide rail to cylinder head. And 20 Newton meters for the M8 bolt that is timing chain guide rail to crankcase. Now I'm going to begin installing my camshaft adjusters or Vanos. This is for ein or in. I'm gonna do this side because the exhaust over here has a little bit more slack with that tensioner. So I'm just gonna take this chain, bring it over, and these can be freely installed in whatever position because they're only locked down with the camshaft bolt. So we have that in. These reluctor wheels, same thing, installed in the free position. They're only set to a specific position once we torque everything down. I also marked them. They can be swapped side to side, I believe. The part numbers are the same, but I just etched a little eye on there just to keep things uniform. So I'm just gonna drop that in too. And let's do the exhaust. Before I do the exhaust, I squirted this thing with a little bit of brake cleaner on the backside, and I did the same thing for exhaust, but I could hear a little bit of cleaner sloshing around. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I'm just gonna spray it out so there's no solvent in there. House or X for exhaust. I'm just trying to wiggle it back and forth, up and down, because if you remember the removal, I had to wiggle these things pretty good to get them to come loose from the camshafts. Our second reluctor wheel, cam wheel. All right, it's looking good. Dang, someone really marred up this cylinder head over here. I'm gonna have to fix that, these scratch marks. I'll end up sanding that down, putting some sealant on top of it with my valve cover gasket. Just to keep everything nice and lined up, I'm gonna grab my timing kit for the N54, and we got these little pins here. Those are gonna line up with the little camshaft reluctor wheels, like so. Okay. Now our cam actuators are in, our camshaft wheels are locked in place to where they should be with the timing kit, and we are ready to go on the top end. Now it's time for our new chain tensioner. Now if we were to rotate this engine over, well, one, I'm not ready to rotate it over because the crank bolt is loose, but if I were to rotate this engine over without the timing chain tensioner in it, I think this thing could jump timing because the chain isn't properly tensioned all the way. So now we install the chain tensioner. This is a brand new chain tensioner, and I recommend using a brand new one. Also has a new sealing ring on it. 27mm bolt. Wants me to insert these screws before I install the timing chain tensioner, but I think it's interchangeable. Torque spec for these camshaft bolts are 20 Newton meters, 180 degrees of rotation. I'm just gonna thread these in loose, just like barely snug, and then I'm gonna double check my order of torquing because I don't have the crank bolt ready, so that kind of throws everything off. I should be able to torque these camshafts though with the cams locked down and the camshaft wheels locked down because I'm not gonna be twisting anything in the bottom end. Locking down the bottom end is gonna be separate than locking down the top end. As long as we have the tensioner in for when we rotate the engine over, that's what's important. I'm gonna pull the tensioner real quick just in case. And I think we're safe to torque the camshaft bolts. I'm just gonna double check everything. The most important part is timing between the top half and the bottom half because this is an interference engine. So if you were to have timing super off, you can have valves hit pistons. That's the most important part. So at the end of the timing chain instructions, main timing chain, we get to installing the crank hub, torquing that down, which I think is like 100 Newton meters, 360 degrees. Install intake and exhaust adjusters and install chain tensioner. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get these torqued up. It's all locked into the top end. We have our camshafts locked in using our timing tool up top. We have our wheels locked in using our timing tool in the front. Let's torque these. And then we can put our timing chain tensioner in, it's no big deal. And then once we get our new crank bolt, we'll torque down the crank bolt. And again, instructions for the camshaft bolts: replace screw, initial torque of 20 Newton meters, and then 180 degrees. 180 degrees. Now 180 degrees on the intake. Let's get our tensioner installed. I think we'll be fine to torque the crankshaft down with the tensioner in. I already know there's gonna be a lot of comments on this video, but if you got information, I am not a master tech. I am not an ASC certified tech. I'm just a dude trying to make it happen in his garage. So if you got information that you think would be useful for this job or this engine or really anything, drop it in the comments down below. Help me out, help everybody else out. We'll all share information and we'll all become better mechanics. 55 Newton meters. Nice. Now while I wait for parts, let's knock out another repair. And what we're gonna be replacing are these little Vanos screens. They are these little guys right here. And here's the part number, 1136-7-541-692. If we look at this part, there's a tiny mesh screen. And this basically is another filtration element, and it's a non-return valve before the oil gets to the Vanos. I had a friend who had some really weird Vanos symptoms going on. I cleaned and swapped the Vanos solenoids, it still didn't fix it. So we replaced the Vanos solenoids as well as these screens and non-return valves, and it fixed his Vanos issue. So if you have some weird funky Vanos stuff going on, try replacing these. They're located on the exhaust side, directly in front of the exhaust manifold, and they're relatively easy to do on an N51, N52 while the engine is in the car. So let's pull these out and get them swapped. Now, Vanos problems can be really scary. They can sound really expensive, but I wouldn't condemn the Vanos system at all until I've replaced these screens and valves and the Vanos solenoids. Crazy thing is, I didn't even know these existed until you guys told me about them when I dealt with Vanos issues on my other N54 engine. I can't believe I didn't know about these while I worked at the BMW shop. The master techs and everybody else never told me about them. When I pulled them out on my friend Peyton's car, there's a little bit of debris on it. A little heavier than that. See, there's a little bit of debris on there, but I replaced them in the Vanos solenoids and it fixed it up real nice. I'm putting a little touch of Sil Glide on the O-ring. Torque spec is 13 Newton meters. All right, I just banged out a short on these oil Vanos return valves and threw it up on my Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. If you guys aren't following the Day Off DIY Instagram or TikTok and you use those platforms, head over there. Give me some support. And also, I try to post content that's different than my YouTube long form. I don't always just like chop up long form videos, post it on there. I try to make it new, unique, and shortened versions. So I'm sure you'll be able to find some good value out of that content over there as well. This valve looks mint. I don't see anything wrong with it. Filter's really clean. There's a little bit of debris on the other one. This one looks really good. Yeah, I did these the other day on Peyton's car with the engine in the car, and there's a N51, N52 variant. And all I did was remove the secondary air pump, and I had really good access. It's actually not very difficult to do. Having an inspection mirror is super helpful because then you can sort of see down in the port and get an idea for where they are, but it's pretty user-friendly. I just researched and I believe these non-return valves exist on N51s, N52s, and N54s. On N20, N26, N55, B48, B58, and S55. I believe they moved them to inside the block or inside the oil filter housing, so access is gonna be different. I haven't done those ones before. 13 Newton meters. Dialed. This engine is gonna be so dialed. I'm gonna end up selling it once I swap it in, put turbos on it, fix the adaptive headlight issues. I'm not gonna do anything to the body. The body's gonna stay rough, but this engine and drivetrain is going to be so dialed. It's got M3 front control arms in it. I'm putting in an upgraded oil cooler. It's gonna make a great car for somebody. So if you do wanna buy this E90 once I put this engine in it, let me know. I'll try to work on figuring out a price. All right, the entirety of the timing chain and guides is all torqued up. We have a torqued oil pump, we have torqued lower chain module, torqued through this plug with the plug torqued, vacuum pump, upper chain module, torqued there, torqued there, torqued there, cam bolts are torqued. We're pretty much good to go we're all set until we get a new crank bolt and a new washer. Once we do that, we're gonna torque up the bottom end. Timing chain tensioners torqued, oil return valves, non-return valves for the Vanos are torqued up. It's almost time to wait for parts. I can't put the ceiling cap on until I get this all torqued up and pull the tensioner. Next, let's install cam sensors with new rings. We can reseal the Vanos solenoids and put in the crankshaft sensor with a new O-ring. The O-rings for the cam sensors and the crank sensor are all the same, and these suckers are original, I can tell. Now I do think I have new cam sensors in my other E90 engine, so we can swap those over once we pull it. I think the crank sensor was replaced by the original owner on the E92. The Vanos solenoids on that E90 are brand new, but oil circulated through them, so I can't use them, I don't think. I might buy new, I might just use these, and if we have a Vanos issue in the future, I'll replace them. Another thing I realized too, guys, we're gonna have to replace the turbos. Those eBay turbos that I have in the car, they've been running on space glitter, and if it got into the bearings inside the turbos, those turbos are gonna be ruined. So I think I'm gonna have to replace the turbos. I've been thinking about it, and I'm putting in all this hard work into this engine. I don't wanna buy Chinese turbos and put it on here. I also want this car to be really nice and dialed in for hopefully a viewer that wants to buy it. And so I think I'm gonna buy OE Mitsubishi turbos and install them when we do this engine. I'm okay with spending the $2,000 on the turbos. I'm gonna have to save up for a little bit, but I'm going to have to increase the purchase price of the vehicle so I can get my money back out. But with this engine and the way we're putting it together with the quality of parts that we are and putting some OE turbos on this thing, this will be a 300,000 mile N54, no problem. And the turbos will last probably beyond 300,000 miles. Those Mitsubishi turbos are usually good for about 150,000. And if we buy them from FCP Euro, got a lifetime replacement guarantee on those turbos and the injectors and the plugs and the coils. Literally every part on this car is gonna have a lifetime replacement guarantee. 8 Newton meters for the camshaft sensor bolts. I shoved a rag behind the crank sensor so I can scrub this and clean it up without any junk getting on the crankshaft. Hi Sage. I bought this brush kit off Amazon, and having bore brushes like this is really nice for cleaning out cylindrical ports, water pipes on E46s, all kinds of stuff. These crank sensors are kind of common to fail too, so I think I'm actually going to buy a new one before we install this engine. It's not very fun to squeeze your hand up here from the bottom and have to replace these crank sensors and get the O-ring fully seated. It can be a real pain. I think I'm going to turn this into one of those while I'm in there type replacements. I'll look up the part tonight. But for now, 8 Newton meters. This is my 3rd can of brake cleaner, by the way. Clean out the old Vanos solenoids. I just stick the straw in there and brake cleaner versus nitrile gloves. They do not mix. So I got these little L-ring Vanos reseal kits. Comes with a new plastic ring and a new O-ring. I think the crank sensor should definitely be a while we're in there thing. The Vanos solenoids can be replaced easily at a later date, so I'm just gonna do my best to clean them up for now, and we'll save the money for the crank sensor. I ain't made of money, folks. I need your help pushing these videos out and subscribing to the channel and sending it to your friends and telling people all the good word about Day Off DIY. Because as we continue to grow, I promise I will keep giving back to the community through giveaway cars. I was talking to my dad and my brother the other day, and I was like, man, I'd love to give away 100 cars in my lifetime, but I think that's a little bit of a tall order if I'm just doing things myself. Let's make our next goal 5, and from there we'll keep increasing the goal. But 5 is achievable. Let's do 5. Help me get to 5 giveaway cars, guys. We're on number 2. Okay, she looks pretty. Look at that. It's looking like a new Vanos solenoid again. Slide our plastic ring on. Little sill glide on the O-ring. Use your lubricant of choice. And again, these Vanos solenoids can be interchanged, so it doesn't matter where we put them in. I bet you they're gonna work just fine. I've forgotten how much fun doing all this fine detail, meticulous stuff is on an engine. You know, being able to just slowly and methodically go through everything without a pressing time frame. I really missed it. So I think we'll have to do more engine builds like this in the future. It's been a lot of fun. I'm also trying to get in the habit of torquing everything and marking all my bolts. And I think the new owner of this vehicle will be happy that I did. Been watching too much Dave's Auto Center to not torque and mark all of my hardware. Now, timing components, you need to torque everything to spec, but the other stuff like these little Vanos bolts, I usually don't, but with the engine out and on a stand like this, you might as well make it look pretty and double check all your work. I should have done all this cleaning while I had everything open and out, but I didn't. I got all the open ports covered up though, so we're okay. I'm reusing the sealing washer on the sealing plugs because I can't get the old washer off. 25 Newton meters. Lower plug, also 25 Newton meters. Now we still need to do the sealing cap for the vacuum pump, the front crankshaft, the new crank bolt, and the grip disc for the back side of the crank hub. But I'm waiting on parts, so I'll see you guys when parts show up. A few days later and we have the tools and parts we were waiting for. A crank hold down tool for the N series engine, the grip disc for the backside of the crank hub, and a brand new crank bolt. Now you see the packaging for this crank bolt? FCP Euro said they'd be able to ship it in 3 days because they didn't have it in stock yet, so I ordered it from one of their competitors. The packaging was already open, it was shipped with no protection inside the package, and the threads on the brand new crank bolt are actually nicked. So this is just one of the reasons why you should buy your parts from FCP Euro. They package them better and they ship them faster. Now before we reinstall this crank hub with the new crank bolt, I want to remove this crank hub completely and really clean out that mating surface on the outside diameter of that crankshaft seal. It's going to be our last opportunity to really clean it up well. Maybe if I pull the tensioner out, let's try that. We'll retorque the tensioner after. As I'm pulling this tensioner out, that crank hub is dropping down nice and level. So I just put the tensioner in too soon. And that's a great learning opportunity, right? I could pull down on that crank and I could feel that chain pushing against that tensioner to get it nice and level. And now with that out, this crank hub will come right out and we won't have to fight anything. And there's that grip disc we need to replace. You can see this line right here. That's where the upper oil pan and the rest of the block seal. And this upper oil pan or bed plate that secures the main bearings for the crankshaft in actually has an injection type sealant. And right here is where it squeezes out and then glues in against the crankshaft seal. So we want to go in on this inside surface and scrub all of this nice and clean. So we got a clean mating surface for that crankshaft seal. I also want to protect any of those timing chain components from getting any junk or Scotch-Brite material to flake off and get onto those sensitive surfaces. So just a piece of red Scotch-Brite with some brake cleaner on it. I'm gonna scrub this out. I had to pause and knock out a mass airflow sensor for my buddy Peyton on his E90 N54. Let's get back to work. I did mar the surface just barely right there. So I'm going to take a really fine grit sandpaper and just try to knock down that top little edge. And then we're gonna use a sealant on the inside of this surface once I install the new crankshaft seal, the new crank seal. This thing fought me so good coming out. I got 2 little mars. I thought I did good, but I have just a little bit of a dent there. So we're gonna work on knocking those down, and yeah, sealant should take care of the rest of it when I put the seal in. I don't think this thing is gonna leak. I cut off a piece of this 3000 grit sandpaper, and this is what I used when I did the rod bearings and I needed to just clean a little burr. And I'm just gonna knock down the high spot on this. I'm not trying to take any material off of the actual diameter. I'm just trying to get the high spot down, just so I can't feel it with my finger. As long as we don't sand it too much, we'll be just fine. Perfect. I knocked the ridge off, it feels great. Use some silicone lubricant to go with this sandpaper. I'm just going real soft. Perfect. Now we'll just wipe it out and inspect things. And again, we're not doing the crank seal right now, but with the crank hub out, we have such good access to clean out all of this surface. You'd be foolish not to clean it out right now, rather than trying to stick a piece of Scotch-Brite in there with the crank hub in the engine. You know, with how much that crank seal fought me, I think we're in really good shape for Mars and things like that. Next, I'm gonna slip this grip disc off the back of the crank hub, match it up with the new one, make sure we got a good part. Then I'm gonna clean this crank hub up. Looks good. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take some brake cleaner and some Scotch-Brite, and I'm just gonna scuff and polish this crank hub where it slides into the sprockets. I don't wanna take any material off, but I just wanna clean it up. Especially down there where this grip disc mates to the crank hub. And then also, just just on the back side, just give it a little polish. And especially around this part here, that's where the crankshaft seal is going to seal against the crank hub as it's spinning like crazy. Here it's kind of scraped up, right? I want to clean all that stuff off. I'm actually going to go to that 3000 grit. I don't want any of those little burrs or nicks getting in the way of my crankshaft sealing. That's no good. I must have marred it up a little bit when I was fighting that crankshaft seal, because I don't think anybody was in here before me. So worst comes to worst, if this thing leaks when I put it back in the car, I can just remove it and replace the crank hub. I'll monitor the crank seal and the crank hub once I get this thing running. It's no big deal. I'm also going to buff this area on the front so none of this rust impedes the harmonic balancer sealing up against the crank hub. All right, I got clean fingers, clean crank hub. I wiped it down with brake cleaner and sprayed it out real good. I also got a clean grip disc because this is, again, friction material, right? It's like think about like a brake rotor. You don't want any oils on this type of material because it's binding the crank hub to those sprockets. We don't want it to slip due to oil. So I got to get this thing worked on here. It's a tight fit. Nice. Now before we move on, look at the height difference between the new crank bolt on the left and the old crank bolt on the right. That is why we replaced it. That old one literally stretched. The height difference is pretty crazy. Let me show you one more way. Also, if we take this old one, stack it on top like that, all that gap right there is the amount that crank bolt is stretched. Once you see it this way, it's incredibly noticeable. Okay, before we slide this crank hub back in, let's get our towel pulled out. On the outside, we have our crankshaft sprocket for the timing chain. Behind that, we have a friction disc to our oil pump sprocket, to another friction disc, and then mating to the crankshaft. I'm gonna spray out those crankshaft threads real quick. Make sure there's nothing that I missed. Time for our crank hub. Looks good, feels good. ISTA says to oil the threads and the screw, so I'm going to place a little bead of clean engine oil on the threads and also on the top head of the screw, the shoulder. I'm not going to go too much, just enough to lubricate it as it's getting tightened down. Okay, next step, we got to torque this central bolt. That means we need our brand new BMW N engine locking tool that I got from FCP Euro. Here's your part number. I think it's so cool that they have the factory BMW tools on their website. And I was like, yeah, let's buy the real deal. There's some other aftermarket options, but let's buy the real thing. This is what I didn't have, but I also just used the chain wrench, which I could use for tightening this. But like I told you guys, I did damage to the flex plate when I didn't use a hold down tool, and I was so stupid trying to use that little pin from the timing set to hold this crank down. So we're gonna do this right, and we're gonna snug this thing down, but I'm going to have to retime the engine again once I get a known good flex plate off the old engine. I'm gonna swap valve covers anyway, so it doesn't matter, but I learned from my mistake. That's what's important. And like I said, I'll never hide my mistakes, and hopefully you guys were able to learn a valuable lesson through my mistake. That's what this channel is all about. I'm never gonna hide stuff from you guys. I'll be open and honest and tell you what happened. All right, so let's snug these up. Nice. We're gonna take an old trusty block of wood, drop this floor jack down, get this floor jack in position. I think that'll work. Initial torque or joining torque is 100 Newton meters. Okay, next I need to do 360 degrees of rotation. I don't have angle torque on my big 1/2 inch torque wrench, so what I'm going to do is make a paint mark flush with that. I have a nice flush corner up there to there, and I have it marked down there. I need to spin this bolt 360 degrees. I got the old breaker bar, the old cheater bar on my biggest 1/2 inch ratchet. I do need to invest in a bigger one. And let me make sure my paint mark doesn't get messed up from my socket. No, that's okay. All right, let's crank this thing. And I'm just gonna try to sort of count 45s. All right, almost 180. Oh, I think that's on the money. Yep, it's perfect. Let me tell you, I wouldn't have been able to do that without this hold down tool. Okay, marked. Time to put the chain tensioner back in. And again, I needed to take it out because that crank hub was all askew and cattywampus with too much tension on the timing chain. 55 Newton meters. Okay, it is time to install the crankshaft seal. Now, if you see on the sides here, this is where the injection for the bed plate or the upper oil pan squeezes out and mates to the crankshaft seal. We got rid of that injection. In fact, we scraped it all away. So I've been watching a lot of M539 restorations, and he really likes this Victor Reinz seal. And so I'm gonna take a small bead and place it right here in this cavity where the factory sealant goes. And he also seems to really like this Loctite MR5923. And I'm gonna place this on the bare metal surface, especially in the spots where I nicked it. And so I'm gonna put a little bit of this on here and a little bit of the Loctite 5923 on the rest of the sealing surface. Now the way that this crankshaft seal works is it comes with this plastic cup. This plastic cup fits over the crank hub so it doesn't catch the edge of your seal as you're going to install it. So this goes in there like that. Make sure my seal is nice and clean. I'm gonna start with the Loctite first. I think it comes with a brush. Whoa, that stuff is thick. I'm gonna need a smaller brush. I didn't expect it to be so thick. I found some artsy paint brushes inside my house, and that's what we're gonna use to apply this Loctite. Now, I only want this on the outside diameter. I don't want it on the crank hub. I especially want it on the places that I marred it. I'm still gonna use the Reinz seal on top of this, on the sides where there's supposed to be sealant from the upper oil pan. And that's exactly why I didn't split the case to do the main bearings. One, the rod bearings look so good. I'm confident in the condition of the main bearings. And two, splitting the bed plate on this engine is quite complex, and then you have to do the injection on it. And I'm confident in the condition of this engine. There you guys can see that a little bit. I got one little spot where I got a little bit on the crank hub. I'm just gonna try to get in there and wipe that out. Time for the crank seal. I'm just gonna take this Victor Reinz seal. Now we're going to line those marks of silicone up with where they line up on the bed plate. We're gonna get our cup centered. It's lined up on our two seams, and we're gonna slide our seal forward. Now my usual method is I take a tiny hamster, one like this or one like this. I really like these brass punches, and I'll take my brass punch and dang it, I didn't want that to come out so soon. This thing is stiff. I normally lube up the outside edge with a bunch of Sil Glide, but yeah, I didn't do that this time because that Loctite was on there. We'll get it, just be patient. It's taking so much force, it's marring it. I think I'm gonna have to put a different seal in it and lube it instead of putting the Loctite. Tell you what, it's gonna be a righteous pain to get this seal back out too. Well, that didn't work well at all. I gotta take it out. I gotta pull the seal. It's no good. I gotta order a new seal. Oh, this project's taking so much longer than I thought. So what was the issue here? It was that sticky Loctite. It wasn't the right product to use on this. I should have lubed it, left this part dry and that part dry, and used the sealant, because I can't get this in. It's too sticky. I gotta pull this seal out and order a new one. If we can get a bite on it with some Knipex vice grips. Yeah, it was just smushing. It was smushing all of that Loctite backwards, and this stuff is just too sticky. So I would use it for mating two surfaces together, but I wouldn't use it for sliding seals. If I could have gotten this thing out cleaner, I would have been able to reuse the seal, but that seal's trash. But suit up. I'm not giving up on the Loctite. I just don't think this was the right purpose. That's on me. Another mistake documented. I ain't perfect, folks. I make a lot of mistakes. My hand is up for the mistake. It's just gonna take a little longer to get this video to you, but I'm trying. I'm trying to release the video for you guys. Now, I haven't done an N54 crankshaft seal in a very long time. You know, maybe the last time I did it, I was using an installation kit, but I dug up the old one. And if you look at the backside, this one has ridges. And this brand new OE seal is solid all the way through. And it looks like they actually changed the seal design from a 2008 to a 2009. I ordered all my parts off of the old 2008 VIN. This engine is February of 2009. The date code on the old seal does say September 24th, 2008, but I'm gonna double check the part numbers and just make sure. And I'm going to buy a new front crank seal, and I'm also going to buy the installation kit because talking to Mario, he was like, dude, these are some of the hardest seals to get out, and they're incredibly difficult to reinstall as well. He did agree with using silicone on the little indents. So I'm going to continue to use the Reinza seal on the installation, but I think I'm going to buy the install tool because it covers N51, N52, N54, N55, and S55. And I think we might have a N55 in my future, and I might be doing more N52s and N54s as time goes on. So I think it's worth the investment. FCP Euro has some specialty tools in their catalog, so I'm gonna double check the numbers. I'll tell you guys what I found out, and I'm gonna get some stuff ordered up, and then we're gonna work on the vacuum pump seal. All right, I got a new crankshaft seal. Part numbers are correct. It was the same for the one I ordered for the 2008 and the 2009, so no difference there. I did buy a CTA manufacturing crankshaft seal remover and installer from FCP Euro as well, and a ZF transmission service kit to go for the E90 when we pull the trans out to do the engine replacement. We can now pull this guy out, and next thing I'm gonna do is clean up this surface for the vacuum pump seal, and then we're gonna attempt to install the vacuum pump seal. Now, I've tried to do this on an N55 before, and it was so difficult. I could not get it installed without a specialty tool. They are difficult to remove and they are difficult to install. I'm gonna try it. I got a little bit of time before I gotta go somewhere. We'll see if we can get it installed. Hopefully I don't have to buy a tool for it. Talking to my buddy Mario, he advises against lubricating it because if there's any blow by or anything high pressure inside the crankcase, it can pop this thing out. I'm not gonna use any lubricant or any sealant on the seal surface, but what I am going to use is some glass cleaner. Now, this is a trick that I've used for many years in regards to installation of control arm bushings and of windshield seals. Now, the glass cleaner will lubricate for the installation of the seal, but over time it'll evaporate and it'll no longer exist in that cavity. And so it won't stay lubricated for the entire time it's in the car. Let's give this a try. This one's gonna be tough, but we might be able to get it. We might be able to get it. Oh, you know what? It's going great. Oh, we got it. We're dialed. That was so easy. I thought this thing was gonna kick my ass. That was so easy. And just for the satisfaction of it, even though it's not torqued, we're gonna mark it just because I want to. Let's go. Replaced. We are back with new parts and new tools. Let's finish up the last piece of this timing chain job. For parts, we got another OE front crankshaft seal. And for tools, I got this CTA manufacturing crankshaft seal remover and installer, both front and rear. And this tool works on N40, N42, N45, N45T, N46, N46T, N52, N53, N54, and N55. I assume it works on N51 as well. And this does rear crank seals and front crank seals. I'm going to clean this crank hub and block surface one more time. Before installation, I'm gonna clean this surface one more time with a pocket screwdriver, a really nice clean rag, and some brake cleaner. Make sure we got all that old sealant out of there, and there's no oils that are gonna get in the way of our installation. And our replacement seal was about 20 bucks, and this crankshaft seal installer kit was about 400. Let's install our first piece of the kit. And like I said before, guys, I have installed at least 10 front crank seals on M series engines, N series engines. I've never had a crank seal fight me so hard on removal and installation. And so, although I do like to show you guys how to do installations like this without specialty tools, I feel like in order to do it right, I had to invest in this tool, but that's okay. I'm gonna do a lot of N engine work in the future, and so I'll be able to get the seals in with ease. It was a purchase I had to make. I've never had a seal fight me so hard on installation and be so sticky. So this first piece we're installing is basically attaching a stud onto the crankshaft so we can push our installation cup onto the crank and onto the block. So 3 Allens go into the crank hub where the harmonic balancer would bolt up. Just lightly snug these up. Now this doesn't come with detailed instructions step by step for every engine. You just gotta figure it out. So what I think is gonna happen is we're gonna put our installation cup on like that. We're gonna slide our crank seal down and get it ready to go onto the hub. Next, we're gonna take this cup this cup has a raised inside lip. So this outside lip is gonna go flush with the block and with the bed plate. And we're gonna slide this over, and then we're gonna put this nut on with this bearing on the back, thread that onto the stud, and then we're gonna turn this, and it's gonna push our seal in nice and flush with a slight recess, because the old one had a slight recess in there too. That block has a slight little chamfer on the inside. Now these instructions from Cortico that came with the seal say don't crush it, don't oil it. Check the alignment of the mounting sleeve with the shaft. Ensure that both the installation surface and the PTFE seal lip are completely dry. Now normally I would install a front crank seal dry or with just a little bit of seal glide so it slides in nice and smooth. But as we talked about, this crank seal has this cavity here for where the injection molding that seals the upper oil pan to the block squeezes out through a little orifice there and mates into the crank seal. Because we scrubbed that away when we cleaned it, again, I'm gonna use a little bit of that Victor Reinz Reinzasil right in here, and I'm gonna put just a light, super light smear on the entire circumference. That way, once this seal does go in, it can help fill in any of those tiny little mars that we have on the sealing surface. Okay, I got my new seal here. I got my bottle of Reinzasil. Throw a nice little bead right here. Nice little bead right here. What I'm gonna do next is just take this excess and put a really thin coat. I'm just pushing hard, trying to expose the ridges of that exterior diameter of the seal, the outside diameter. I think we'll be fine. It's just a little extra reassurance. I kind of need it. This is such a small amount of silicone that even if some did get into the engine, it's not enough to plug up any orifices or get into the oil pump pickup. I'm not a fan of silicone. I don't promote it, but sometimes situations like this, you gotta do it to make up for the Mars. All right, on with the seal. Now, because it has these points for injection, I need to line up those injection marks with where the upper oil pan and the block mate. Now we'll go with our installation cup, slide it on, make sure our orifices, our little cavities are lined up with the block. It looks good. Keep going. Okay, now it's time to use the nut. We'll start with our nut. Oh yeah. All right, dude, that was so easy. Like I said, guys, I have never, ever had a crankshaft seal fight me this much. If I had to do an N54 front crank seal in the car, it would literally kick my ass. But doing it this way, that is perfect installation. I had really nice squish out on the silicone from where I had to fill in those cracks. It pushed out against this ring. So now I can just wipe this off. Take that back off. Our inside seal lip looks perfect. It's hugging the crank hub really nice. As far as depth on the seal goes, we are equal all the way around. It is looking really good. That kit, this installation kit, made that job so easy. I'm actually quite happy I invested in it. I think it was worth it. I'm gonna feel way more confident anytime I have to do a crank seal, front or rear, on any N-Series engine, having this tool in my toolbox. I've really been enjoying marking everything with paint markers this job. I actually ordered new paint markers, ones that aren't so stringy. We're gonna put a little paint marker just to show that that crank seal has been replaced. Now, because I wallowed out this little locking pin location on the flex plate, I'm not confident on the timing of the top end to the bottom end. So again, I'm gonna have to take the old flex plate off of my old engine, swap it onto here, double check the timing, and if it needs a slight adjustment, I'm gonna break the two camshaft adjusting bolts loose, adjust the top end to the bottom end, and then I can put the valve cover on. As far as oil pan, we can put the oil pan back on and still adjust the timing. I just have some bolts to extract, and I'm gonna do that next video, and then we'll clean up this surface, pressure wash the old oil pan, and get it all buttoned up. Now, if you were to have done this job correctly with a crank hold down tool right off the bat like I didn't do, then you would be all good to go and your engine is dialed in. If the pin goes in and the blocks go onto the camshaft nice and clean, you're ready to go. Put the valve cover on it, take the timing kit off, and let this thing ride. I have one more job that I wanna do before we call this episode good. Let me show you what it is. Now, one of the Achilles heel of the BMW N-Series engine is the tensioner. you can see it has this big coiled spring in the back. As these wear out, the spring sags and these pulleys lean forward. This causes the belt to want to walk off of the pulleys and the engine spits the belt. Then you have a crank hub with a harmonic balancer that is spinning that belt at crazy RPMs. It starts to shred, and that belt can actually walk in through this seal and wrap around the crankshaft, sometimes causing catastrophic damage, plugging up the oil pickup, getting into the oil pump. It gets really bad. Another reason why it does that is the oil filter housing right here leaks down onto the belt. Oil and rubber do not mix. Oil causes the rubber to go soft, and in addition to the tensioner sagging forward, a soft, squishy, deteriorating belt combined with a sagging tensioner causing the belt to walk off the pulleys is a recipe for disaster. So people have figured out a solution to protect the crank seal and protect that catastrophic damage. Now, in my opinion, the best resolution for this is good preventative maintenance, making sure your oil filter housing is nice and tight and it's not leaking, and also inspecting the pulleys and the tensioner at regular intervals to see if they are walking forward. If the belt is flush with the pulley or hanging over the pulley, I replace the belt, the tensioner, and any associated pulleys that are making noise. However, there's a product that has become very popular over the last few years in order to protect this sealing surface. And a viewer of mine, Marcel, created a company, and he actually manufactures what is called a crank seal guard. Now, he asked me if I was gonna be installing one, and I said, probably not. You know, the oil filter housing is gonna be tight, it's gonna have a new belt, new tensioner. But once I learned that he's manufacturing these things, I had to support this guy. So he shipped one out to me. Let's go through the unboxing together and get it installed on the front end of this block. So here I have the packaging from him. I also got a really nice note. Hey Alec, really appreciate the support. It honestly means a lot. Stoked to have one of these on your car. If you have any questions or want to compare notes, I'm always happy to chat. Thanks again, Marcel. He also included some really nice instructions with inventory and supplies, as well as instruction details for everything for installation while it's on the vehicle, including torque specs. He hooked me up with some different scent air fresheners and some stickers. Mala Industries. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's got a German accent. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. Inside the box, we have our crank seal guard. It looks really nice. It's got a laser engraved logo down here at the bottom, Mala Industries, made in Canada, and a little QR code on the back. It is aluminum, and you can even see some tooling marks, so this thing was machined. It also comes with some medium strength Loctite, which I really appreciate, and some replacement steel screws and washers, because we will be removing these two aluminum screws in order to install it and cover up the crank surface. Before I pull this hardware out, I'm gonna try to clean up this surface. Now, because we already have the harmonic balancer off and really good access, next we're gonna remove these two E12 aluminum bed plate bolts or upper oil pan bolts. And normally I would be concerned about breaking this seal loose, but I believe, you know, we got that injection molding all the way through there, and only breaking two of these loose, we're not really like separating a lot of the upper oil pan, so I think we should be totally fine as far as oil leaks go. Okay, let's test fit this thing. It fits really nice. You really want to make sure you got a nice gap between the crank guard and the hub. And I also just want to see if there's any other surfaces that I can clean. Don't want any dirt impeding with the installation. All right, this is the cutest bottle of Loctite that I've ever seen. Little one-time use Loctite. I do appreciate you supplying that. I've never installed or seen a crank guard like this before. Little touch of blue Loctite. It looks really good. Now, from what I read in the instructions, there is play side to side, right? And so as we're going up and we get these snug, we don't want this. If we push this all the way to one side, we could technically have interference with the crank guard to the crank hub. So I want to push it over till it's fully contacting on here and back it off a touch. I just want to visually check, make sure that everything is nice and clearanced. I'll also be able to confirm this once I rotate the engine over after I take the timing blocks off. All right, that looks really nice. Per instructions, starting with the left bolt passenger side on a left-hand drive car. Torque bolt to 15 foot-pounds, 20 Newton meters. For aluminum, 8.5 Newton meters. 20 Newton meters. And of course, paint marker. You know guys, I can't confidently say this timing job is done until we spin this thing over. So let's spin this engine over together, see if it falls back into time, even with my sloppy index location on the flex plate. First, we pull the Vanos locking tool. Then we can pull the camshaft locking tool. Lift these up, slide this forward, lift these off the cams. Then we pull the pin from the upper oil pan to the flex plate. And I'll get these rags out from the cylinder head, 22mm socket on the crank, and let's rotate. Now I'm gonna rotate this over 4 revolutions until I see the QR codes on top of the camshafts. Get you guys a view of the cylinder head while I do this. I have all of the spark plugs and the injectors removed with little bore brushes, protecting debris from getting inside. While we continue rotating, I also want to visually inspect the timing chain down here at the oil pump. And I also want to listen to this crank guard, see if I can hear any metal on aluminum. Now that we've got plenty of rotations, I'm going to look down through these holes at the index marks for the camshafts. And I'm going to rotate this over until I see that QR code on both camshafts come to the top position, maybe right about there. And I'll know I'm at cylinder 1 TDC when I can take these blocks and they drop down without any effort right onto the cams. And look at that. Sometimes they go a little easier with these busted loose, but just wiggle it back and forth. And yeah, we're fully seated on that side, fully seated on this side. Next, let's check if our camshaft wheels are lined up with the rest of the camshafts. And we're gonna do that with these little pins. Over here on the intake sits lower than this one on the exhaust. Take the bolts out so they don't interfere with sliding forward. Put it flush against the cylinder head. And we got one. They're popping out on each other. They might be off a touch. Makes me feel like one of these is just like warped a little bit from pulling it off. It's so close, I don't even think breaking these loose would fix it. This is a perfect example as to why you need to time your engine, spin it, and recheck timing. I didn't mix these up. This was exhaust, this was intake. I'm just thinking like this is tweaked and like maybe bent just a touch from removal. You never want to force timing equipment. So you can see marks where it's catching on that outside edge. So it's not an issue of top and bottom, if that makes sense. Outside edge isn't gonna be a timing issue. That's gonna be a warpage in the disc issue. Does that make sense? Also, it's starting to push the pin back a little bit. So I think it just might be a flaw in the timing set. I'm gonna tap this back in and just keep trying real quick. It's nice and flush. I mean, I'm gonna be breaking these loose again anyways to double check the timing on the bottom end. And before we do all that, we go in here with this pin. See, that bottom end isn't timed up right there. You can actually see part of that flex plate piece. See the pin hitting it? Right there. That means from me wailing on this thing and not having it locked and wallowing out that index location, the bottom end is not timed up with the top end. If I would have slapped this in the car, it would have caused issues. It wouldn't have ran right. I don't know if it's severe enough to cause interference between piston and valves, but it would have. So I'm not gonna deal with this right now. I'm sorry to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, because what's the point of me busting it loose and retiming the engine if the bottom end isn't gonna be in time? And see, there we go. We're able to get it to pop down anyways. So we have resolution on that too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw these back in, and I'm not gonna rotate this engine over anymore until we swap the flex plate over. I'm gonna leave this timing kit on it the entire time, because we're not gonna be able to get this engine in time until we remove the flex plate off of the old engine again and put it on this one and time the bottom end up to the top one. That's our bottom end reference for timing. So it's not gonna be correct until we have a good reference. But yeah, now it's popping into place. We got our bolts down, and it wasn't an issue with lining up top and bottom. It was side to side. So it's just a little imbalance in these little camshaft wheels. At least our intake and our exhaust are timed together, and our Vanos adjustment units and our little wheels are timed again to each other. And this will all get retimed once I get the flex plate on. I I want to thank you guys for being patient with me, and I want to apologize just for some of the hiccups that I experienced during this video. But the important thing is that I'm keeping it real with you guys. I'm not going to delete the part where I took an impact to the flex plate and wallowed that out and used the chain wrench, and then finally got the BMW N crank hold down tool. That was all part of my process. I'm not a master tech. I'm not an ASC tech. I'm not the best BMW tech that ever lived. I'm just a dude in his garage trying to fix some cars and trying to teach you guys a couple things along the way while I learn a couple things too. Now, big takeaways for this entire job. There's probably going to be parts that you're going to miss. I missed the grip disc on the back of the crank hub. I also missed the updated oil pump sprocket that comes out of the N55 design, which also requires the updated crank hub. I had a really hard time with that front crank seal, and I needed to buy that specialty kit in order to get the new one in, but it just fell right in. Having a hold down tool for the vacuum pump sprocket would have been really helpful. The Allen key worked just fine in regards to holding down the sprocket on the oil pump, so you could get away with just an Allen key. If you're not comfortable with doing it the way that I did it, with just sticking a screwdriver or a tool in there to hold that sprocket still while you break the bolt loose and retighten it, you could buy the hold down tool. I would invest in the crank hold down tool. I got it from FCPro for about 70 bucks. You're gonna need a timing tool for whatever engine you're doing timing work on. If it's a timing chain, you need the timing chain kit. But luckily they cover a lot of different engines, so it'll be good in that sense. I did talk to my buddy Mario about pulling the camshaft carriers, you know, those cam ledges and, you know, these big cam girdles, but some specialty tools are required for that. So I don't even know if I'm going to be pulling all those and inspecting the cam ledges. This engine looks in really good shape. The rod bearings were mint. So I think I'm just going to run it. And if we have to do them in the future, we can replace the Vanos units, and we can also tear the camshafts out and do it that way. Yeah, don't try to bust the crank bolt loose with just the pin in the flex plate like I did. That was a rookie mistake. Really take your time ordering parts. Order the new plugs if you want to replace these sealing washers, because they're pretty much embedded behind the threads, so you can't easily take them off and thread new ones on. Reseal the cam sensors and the Vanos solenoids while you're in there if you're going to replace it. Pick up a crank guard if you want to add a little bit of extra protection while you're in there and have this all torn apart. Order a new crank bolt like I forgot to do. Order new camshaft Vanos adjuster bolts also. Those are angle torques, so those should be replaced as well. And yeah, there's not that many kits out there. I'm going to talk to FCPro about putting together a kit for this car, because I had to order all of these parts individually. But if there was a kit to cover all these small little aluminum bolts, and for the timing chain module, and you know, for the bolts behind all these plugs, and these two bolts up here, and the camshaft bolts, and the crank bolt, it would make life a lot easier. We could also include the front crank seal and camshaft sensor seals and Vanos solenoid seals, and we could just do a one-stop shop. So maybe I can coordinate with them and we can put together a little day off DIY timing kit. I think that'd be pretty cool. Renewing the tensioner is also really important as well. As far as the N54 series goes, I have pretty much everything to swap this engine into the new car. The only thing I need to do is work on turbos. I'm just not comfortable putting those old eBay turbos that have been running on space glitter back onto this new engine that's pretty well gone through. I have a new oil cooler over here, a CSF high performance oil cooler, because I can't flush out that old oil cooler. So right now I'm just stacking up some cash so I can pull the trigger on some turbos. And I think I'm just gonna buy some OE Mitsubishi turbos. I think that's the next step. So bear with me and be a little patient. I gotta put together some cash. We all know that N54 turbos are not cheap. A big thank you to Marcel at Mala Industries for hooking me up with that new crank seal guard. A huge thank you to FCPro for sponsoring today's video and always taking care of me with all of my DIY BMW projects. If you need any European car parts, go to fcpro.com, browse their catalog, and check out what they got. They're the best in the business. Be sure to check out the BMW E46 Fix and Give series. Throw your name in the hat and have a chance to win that BMW when I'm all done with the restoration. Subscribe for more DIY content. I hope you enjoyed, or I hope you learned something new. And as always, folks, I'll see you on my next day off. Cheers! I can't end the video like that. The crank is too far off from the top end. I have to try to break this loose and to try to fix it before we call this video done. It's not close to timed up well enough. It's not. I cannot make a video about replacing timing chains and guides and have it this far off. I can't. So let's try to fix it. This engine is, the bottom end is too far advanced. So here's what we're gonna do. We have to bust these loose no matter what. Let's bust them loose. Okay, I have the cam bolts loose. That means that the timing chain and the camshaft adjusting units will spin separately from the camshafts because they are not keyed. They're only held in with friction. Now, the school of thought is that you should never rotate an engine backwards. However, because this bottom end is too far advanced, if I were to go through a full rotation, I could risk pistons hitting the open valves because this is an interference engine. So I'm going to go backwards with the crank. It's a little unorthodox, but this is going to be the safest way to where I don't cause damage to the valve train. So 22 on the socket. Now I'm going to go backwards with the bottom end until I can get that pin to lock in like that. So now that that pin is fully flushed and it's indexed into the flex plate, I have my camshaft locking tool on. I have my Vanos adjustment unit increment wheel locked on. Now the bottom end is locked. Now I can retorque these 20 Newton meters, 180 degrees. And because these haven't been heat cycled, these bolts will still be fine to reuse. I'm gonna pull them all the way out and inspect them just in case. Look great. There's a little bit of old oil on them. I don't exactly like the oil. I couldn't finish out that video that way, guys. I gotta get the timing and at least show you how to correct the timing. It's incomplete. I screwed the job up on that bottom end timing. And see, when I released those bolts and I rotated the crankshaft, the chain moved and the camshaft stayed put. So the top end was retarded from the bottom end. So now I do 20 Newton meters, intake and exhaust. And now we do 180 degrees. Now, what we do is pull off our timing blocks. Then we pull our pin. And we rotate the engine over till our timing blocks fit down again. This little pin keeps pushing out. I'm not supposed to do that. Okay, those are in. Top end. The camshaft sensor wheels are lined up with the camshafts and the Vanos adjustment units. Okay, and looking at it, it looks like it's lined up. Now we take our pin, drop it down and through. It's still off. That bottom end, it's better. Still off. Let's go on a creeper underneath and look at that little index bendy tab. The tab is still good. It's not too beat up. Everything looks intact. It might just be a little wallowed out, but should be okay. Let's time it again. I don't want to keep stressing these cam bolts. So what I'll do is when I do swap this engine into the car, I'll buy 2 new cam bolts and just throw those in when I retime it with the new flex plate and all that. But let's break them loose again. At least we'll use these up for checking our rough timing. My mistake's gonna have to cost me some money. I wouldn't learn my lesson if it didn't. Okay, that pin is in again. 180 degrees. Pull our pin, rotate, and 1 crankshaft rotation is half of a camshaft rotation. So it takes 2 crankshaft rotations to get a full camshaft rotation. Oh yeah, right on the money. Wiggle her in. And I don't even have to bolt these down. Everything's locked down in place. Will the pin fit? If the pin doesn't fit, I think something else might be wrong. It's still too far forward. What would make the bottom end turn faster? It's the same exact thing happened again. Okay, here's what I think is happening. Because I'm rotating the crank backwards, I'm introducing slack into the system. So by the time I rotate it all forwards, that slack is coming tight and it's pushing the bottom end beyond where it needs to be and where I dropped it in at the pin. Now, I could rotate the engine over unlocked on the top end and the bottom end and then get it to where I need it to be on the crankshaft and then adjust the camshafts. Or what I can do is I can break these loose, I can go backwards with the crankshaft beyond where I need it to go, and then get tension back into the system, rotate it forward until the pin drops in. Again, I don't like to rotate engines backwards. You're not really supposed to rotate them backwards, but it is the lesser of the 2 evils than me having to go through and mess with all this camshaft timing and stick a wrench over here on the backside and try to get them back into position again. I feel like this is the smarter of the 2 methods. skids, and I gotta get this fixed and get this slack out of the timing chain and get this all dialed in before we continue. So let's do it one more time. I think I can get it. I can make a video on how not to time an engine. Again, I didn't do it perfect, but I know where I messed up and I'd like to fix it. I can't rotate the bottom end too far because again, we could have valve to piston contact and then we're in bad shape, but this will be fine. I can do this. Okay, pull the pin. Now we're going to rotate the engine backwards. Just a little bit. We're not doing a full revolution. It's not enough force to actually affect the crank bolt. We're fine. So we're gonna go backwards beyond where I need it to go. Okay, now we're gonna take the pin, get that slack out of the chain. It's good. We rolled it forward. We should have good chain tension now. These poor little cam bolts are getting a workout. Definitely need to replace them when we put the flex plate on. I just made a video on replacing bolts that are torque and angle to yield. And BMW says replace the screws. I replace the screws. At least I try to. On most of them. Precious engine components, I will. Rotate the engine over until the pin drops in. Dang it, I went past it. Okay, keep going. Okay, pin is in. Blocks. Yes. Camshaft wheels. Yes. Boom. The pin locked in its home right there. Camshaft block. Locked. Flush. Camshaft wheels. Flush. Easy. No force. Dialed in. Let's do it again. And then I can properly feel good about this job. Teaching and showing people how to fix their own car when you're still learning how to fix cars yourself it's no easy feat sometimes, but boy, I learn a lot, let me tell you. All right, everything's unlocked. Let's rotate again. There's one rotation of the crank. Cams are half. We're getting close to another full 2 revs on the crank. Get our pin ready. Pin is in, locked in nice and smooth. Cam block falls right in, flush, front plate falls right on. Boom! We're timed. It was the slack issue. It was the dang slack. As I rotated backwards, I created slack in that chain. As it went in the direction that it needed to go, it took that slack back out. So by unlocking the cams and rotating it backwards and getting it just to where it needed to go, I was introducing that slack between the bottom end and the top end. So once I went through and rotated through, it pulled that slack back out and it was advancing the bottom end from the top end. Yes! Oh, at least I get to feel better about this whole ordeal. And the flex plate isn't that blown out, but we're still gonna do all this again. Once we put the new flex plate on, I'm gonna order new cam bolts right now and we're gonna do that as well. So I'll see you guys on the next episode.